season. Kyrie Irving playing without a minute's restriction tonight and likely to get a positive, warm welcome from the Madison Square Garden crowd, you would think, in light of recent events. The intrigue. Hi, everybody. CGI Game Time presented by State Farm from our Atlanta studios. Good to have you along with us. I'm Matt Weiner. That's Rex Chapman right there. Wes Wilcox, the former general manager of the hometown Atlanta Hawks. Fellas, settle in. We got a lot to talk about. The post-Kristaps Porzingis era begins tonight in New York. A day after the stunning trade that sent Porzingis to Dallas, the Knicks welcome the Celtics to town, including possible summer free agent target Kyrie Irving. Here's head coach David Fizdale pregame.
No, this is what the situation called for. Obviously I never got to coach him and was excited to coach him. We had a really good relationship, but he had to make a decision, and he felt that it was best that he get a fresh start. And so I thought that Scott and Steve really did a great job of bringing back a really talented kid in Dennis, some really proven solid veteran players, and Wes and DeAndre, guys I've competed against in the past that's really given me problems, and to get back 2 first-round picks is that's pretty dang good, and we cleared $30+ million, so you never want to see a player go, but we are excited about our future. Yeah, we talked last night. We had a great conversation last night. Obviously both of us wished each other well, kind of laughed like, man, we never even got to get on the court together like we wanted to. And but at the end of the day, this league is funny, how it works and how things come back around in certain ways. And we left it in a great place. And the whole time we were together here, I really felt like we had a good relationship. So, I leave it with no regrets with that.
David Fizdale talking about the star player he never got to coach in New York, Kristaps Porzingis, who is now off to the Dallas Mavericks. Tim McMahon from ESPN just reported that he will not play or is not likely to play the rest of the season for the Mavericks. So the pairing of Doncic and Porzingis is sometime off in the future. In the meantime, in New York, the deal clears enough cap space to sign 2 max free agents this summer, which sounds like a great plan if you can sign 2 max quality free agents this summer. At the same time, it's not as good as if you don't wind up with one of those A-list players. As a GM, how risky a big swing is this for New York?
Well, I like the swing. To build a great team, you got to take risk. And when you take a step back and you look at the magnitude of a trade like this, there's 3 things everybody's looking for. They're looking for financial flexibility. They got that done. They're looking for draft picks. They got 2 of them, 1 being unprotected. And they got a young asset, a young player in Dennis Smith Jr. that can be a pretty good player for them. So big risk, but if you want to zoom out and say how these deals are typically put together, they check every box.
But the flip side is, to go back to you, is the bird in hand theory, which is you have a star player, granted an injured star player,
Yep.
but you have a legitimate star player. And at the moment, assuming none of these players who've come over from Dallas are going to be re-signed, because that's obviously the plan, you have no star player in New York.
Yeah, that's what's unusual about this is the timing and really the place of Kristaps Porzingis' career. If we look back a year and a half ago, maybe prior to the ACL injury, when he's a top 20 player, franchise player, it's like unfathomable that we would be at this place just a little more than a year from there. So absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. It's really interesting, and these are big businesses banking their mortgaging their future on 21, 22, 23-year-old young men. I'm excited. I don't know how you sell this to the Knicks fan base. I have some friends, diehard Knicks fans. We all do. Irate today, just furious, wondering what the heck is going on. And then when you don't have a star there to sort of build around, and you don't have the bird in the hand, you're just hoping that one of these big free agents comes and maybe lures another guy with him, but that's a big hope.
Both of you worked in front offices. Talk to me a little bit about sort of league chatter, how word gets around. Obviously, everybody sees what is happening in New York. They'd love to go after Kevin Durant. They'd love to go after Kyrie Irving or any number of the other huge free agents. What are the discussions, not tampering, but what are the discussions around the league right now when it comes to these A-list free agents who are out there?
My take on it is yesterday when the news broke, it lit the league on fire. You know, every GM, every president, everybody, scout, coach, owner is on the phone with one another because the dynamic of the league has changed. You know, have more parts, all of a sudden, more guys may be available than there were an hour ago. So it really sets the league on fire, I think.
How do you come about the calculus of whether you think one of these guys will sign with your team? They're all available. Getting them to come to your team is a different equation when the money is basically equal.
I don't know, quite honestly. I do know this. If you're in L.A. or you're in New York, a mega market, you got to believe you have a shot.
Yeah.
This summer, there are 7 max slots between the 2 L.A. teams and the 2 New York teams. That's unbelievable. Now, there's 13 teams going into today, or going into yesterday. I think 12 teams since Dallas is kind of out of it with max room. Of that list, the teams that realistically have a chance to land a player like Kyrie Irving or Anthony Davis, unfortunately, they're those mega markets.
Right.
So, you know, from that perspective, it's probably like a gamble that you feel you can realistically achieve. Short of that, I really don't know. And I feel bad for some of these teams that are mid-market teams with, you know, hope to sell a little bit like we heard last year with Denver, you know, trying to get involved in LeBron, great team, we're going to be really good. And sure enough, Denver's right, but they couldn't get a meeting.
Right. What do you guys make of what Kyrie Irving said today when he was asked about his future and basically backed off his vow in the preseason to re-sign with Boston, saying, ask me July 1st when free agency begins? So suddenly the door is ajar with regard to Kyrie Irving.
You know, I think we've been seeing this go on throughout this season. Boston is, I'm amazed, they're as we sit here today, they're 32-19. I think that's an incredible achievement for Brad Stevens, because this team is funky, and they've been funky all season long. They've had a couple of little stretches where they look like, okay, we may be figuring this out, but they have so many good players, guys who last year, Jason Tatum got a lot of minutes, Jaylen Brown got a lot of minutes they weren't expecting to get with Gordon Hayward going out. Now everybody's back. There are not enough minutes to go around. It appears. Brad Stevens is managing it for now, but with Kyrie, I think you just got to sort of play this out, see what happens. Danny, you know this about Danny Ainge. Danny's on the phone, talking to everybody about everything.
Well, the Celtics have played well lately. They've won 7 of their last 8. Danny is an aggressive general manager. He's never been afraid to make deals. Do these comments, do you think, affect the way he's thinking about Kyrie right now? Like, does that open the door to something next week?
I would say their goal is clear. Re-sign Kyrie and trade for Anthony Davis in the offseason.
Right.
That's plan A. Internally, you have to believe that there's a conversation with the group that says, okay, the temperature's shifted here. And that has to be connected to their record. Everybody comes in the season and we believe Boston's going to be #1 in the East. And we're halfway through and they're 4th. And there's been a little bit of consternation between Kyrie and his young teammates. And in fact, it's interesting. You know, Kyrie has not played 8 games this year. Boston's 6-2 in those games. Jaylen Brown's averaging nearly 20 points in those games. So it's a fascinating dynamic. And last year they one game from the NBA Finals without Kyrie. So it's really a compliment to the front office and job they've done. I would also say this. I would never bet against Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens. And when you look at the front offices involved and their track records, really good guys everywhere who have done a nice job, but nobody involved in any of this stuff has the track record of Danny Ainge.
No,
and I would not bet against the Boston.
And they've got assets to do really any combination of things.
That's
right. I mean, whether it's short term or this upcoming summer, if it's Anthony Davis or whoever might be involved. Let's bring in Brian Mahoney, who is in the middle of all this intrigue in Manhattan. That's where he covers the Knicks for the Associated Press. And Brian, how was this Porzingis news received around town amongst Knicks fans over the last 24 hours?
Well, being a Knicks fan, some loved it and a lot hated it. It's been a real mixed bag. There are some people who look at it like, how could they have traded this guy? He was the best player they've drafted in years, and he was going to be the superstar here for years and years to come. And there's a lot of people who look at the possibilities now with the cap space they have, with the picks they have, that maybe, whoa, we can really do something here really fast. So, over the last 24 hours, there has been, a great debate in New York, and I can really see both sides of it.
In terms of the risk moving forward, does the management in New York, Steve Mills in particular, is there a confidence level that they're going to get one of these A-list free agents for certain, or are they gambling more than they might let on?
I have to assume they feel really good about it because no matter what, even if they say, look, Kristaps didn't want to be here, and even if you're concerned about coming off the ACL, you still don't make that move in my mind unless you're really sure there's going to be a great payoff beyond just, draft picks and Dennis Smith Jr. So, again, we've seen teams try and try again in free agency, and it doesn't work out. So it's always a risk, but it's a risk I think they feel is worth taking, and there's enough good guys out there in this class. Obviously, we've talked about the names forever that you kind of have to give yourself a shot to be in that race if you can.
Brian, this is the second time that Kristaps Porzingis was in trade conversations. The first time they didn't do it. One of the questions is, how does medical play into this? Do you have any idea if there was a concern that whether the back or the ACL had a significant influence in this decision, or was this just about honoring the trade request?
They said it was secondary. They were asking about the health a little bit, but I have to believe it's part of the concern. Even Kristaps himself said earlier in this year, the doctors told him there wasn't really kind of a track record of a guy at his size having an ACL. Part of the reason they took the recovery so slowly was because there was nothing really to go on. Who had this previously, how long he was out. A 7'3" guy just doesn't happen very much. So there's no way they were going to know if they were going to be the same player again. I think obviously at his age, you would hope he would be, and he probably will be. But when you line up your pros and cons list, why to make a deal? I think one of the things you have to consider is maybe he's not the Kristaps he would have been 2-3 years ago.
Brian, let me ask this. I'm a bit of a personnel guy. I think about your young assets, your young players, Kevin Knox and the like. You have some really good pieces. Dennis Smith Jr. getting over in a trade. How does Coach Fizdale keep these guys engaged, playing winning basketball, because you're going to lose games? You've won 10 all year. How does Fizz keep these guys engaged?
Yeah, forget the winning basketball part. They're not going to win very much. But I think he's done a great job, and I think the players they have here have done a good job. There's been some guys who fall out of the rotation for a few games. Trey Burke, for one of them, was here. Moutier was, and when they come back in, they play pretty well. So he's keeping them engaged when they're not in the games, and it seems like they are playing hard. I think the young guys, a guy like when Dennis Smith Jr. comes in here, will be the same way. It didn't go his way in Dallas as much as he would have liked to. It's a great shot here. He can be the point guard of the future, maybe in New York. So I do think they'll keep playing hard. The wins are not going to come, but the effort still can be there, I think, and hopefully it will be.
Across the river, news today, D'Angelo Russell was named by Adam Silver as the replacement for Victor Oladipo on the Eastern Conference All-Star squad. What kind of validation is that for the Brooklyn Nets as a team, especially given where they're coming from over the last few seasons?
Yeah, I mean, they were really excited about it. I think they were, pretty let down when he didn't make it as a reserve on Thursday. But he's earned it. I really thought he deserved to be in this game. I wasn't totally sold on him earlier in the year, but the way he's played now, what they've lost in the backcourt with him, Karis LeVert, Alan Crabb, and now Spencer Dinwiddie, he's really had to step up his game. And since all those guys went out, they're playing some of the best basketball in the East, and that's a lot because of how well D'Angelo Russell has played. And it's really worthwhile for him to get this, and for the Nets, like you say, to kind of show that they're going in the right direction to have an all-star now.
He's been very good here lately. Quickly, again, on the Knicks before we let you go. Dennis Smith Jr., DeAndre Jordan, Wes Matthews, not playing tonight. When are they likely to make their Knicks debuts?
I would think the next game because they all were here. They're just not playing. So they've been in New York already now, and they've met the team. So, Sunday is the next game. Maybe they'll be ready for then. I think that would probably be the goal if the Knicks can make it happen.
All right, Brian Mahoney from the Associated Press. Appreciate the time as always.
Thank you, guys.
All right. You guys, you've been through this before. Explain to the folks what is involved when players move back and forth. What has to happen?
Thanks, Tony. Catch you soon.
And whatnot.
Yeah, coordinating physicals is really the biggest thing. Players are informed,
no, they're not going to send me.
And we coordinate travel, trying to nail down physicals and get them ready to play as soon as you can. What's interesting in this situation, it looks like neither team wants their players to play.
Right.
And so
no rush,
there's no rush. And probably, we don't know, but the safe bet is Wes Matthews and DeAndre Jordan are going to be either retraded. They can't be traded together in aggregation, but they can be traded individually before next week's deadline, or if not traded, bought out. Because a big part of this trade that we haven't really talked about is the incentive for the Knicks to continue to lose to increase their lottery odds, even though they've been flattened, as was talked about earlier.
I think this is big for Dennis Smith Jr. They're going to want, obviously, to get him in the uniform and playing as quickly as they can, because he does have a chance to be an extremely good player. And listen, being the point guard in the Big Apple for a decade ain't all bad.
Yeah. For a decade?
Well, you know.
You're giving him a decade?
I'm hoping. I'm hoping he's that guy.
Tell that to Frank Ntilikina. Or Emmanuel Mudiay or Trey Burke, for that matter. Losing, by the way, something the Knicks are very good at lately.
Very good, consistently.
Lost 11 in a row, in fact, as they take on the Celtics tonight. All right, more coming up here on Game Time Live. Anthony Davis spoke up for the first time since his trade demand went public. We'll hear from AD on his future next.
NBA. To be honest with you, it really pisses me off, if you want to know the truth, if you want me to speak in layman's terms. Because you should ask us if we feel like second-class citizens. And I can tell you right now, that is the farthest from the truth there is. There is nothing that we ask for or we want or anything that they won't give us and Mrs. B won't give us to try to help us win games. So whoever wrote that, you know, you're actually full of shit, if you want to know the truth.
Woo-hoo, earmuffs, kiddies. So when you hear him say it's like we're a second-class franchise organization, what is that? How do you react to hearing
7 years, man? Like, I think it was 7 years he's been in. 7 years is is that mark for most great players, and they say either I'm going to be here for the rest of my career, or I'm going to move. It has nothing to do with. I don't even think the New Orleans Pelicans being a second-class organization has nothing to do with that. Mm-hmm. You know, they treated him with the utmost respect. They brought in Boogie Cousins last year. They brought in Nurkic. They brought in Rondo. They signed Holiday. You know, they have made some moves that would be, you know, could possibly put him in position, but it just hasn't. So he's saying this is the 7-year mark, and that is the indicator. I don't even know off the top of my head when Chris Webber was a free agent, when Akeem Olajuwon, like all of these guys from the past, and now you bring LeBron James in his 7th year. What did he like? That's the year when guys say, "I'm going to stay here forever," or "I'm going to leave."
And that last point, I think this past year, by not bringing back Rondo, we know Boogie's injury kind of made everyone hesitant. I think if you'd have done a few more things, to Kenny's point, and after talking to Rich Paul at the game the other night, that was a deciding factor. In year 7, you're not making the moves that makes us feel comfortable that we want to stay here for our whole career. That's why Rich Paul did what he did.
Well, it makes sense so far in those 7 seasons. The Pelicans have only made it to the postseason twice.
I don't even think it's the moves, though, D. I don't think it's the moves that they made, because I think those moves that they made, they were going for it, in a sense. It just didn't work out. Now, it's like, you tried, but it just, you know, that wasn't the girl I want to take to the prom. Or I even could get to I could even get a prom invitation. Because I didn't get to the playoffs.
You couldn't get to the dinner,
So now it didn't work out. It doesn't have anything to do that you didn't do all of the things. You bought the flowers, you bought the candy, you set up the limousine. It's just nobody, you opened the limousine and nobody was in it. You know, no playoff was inside of that limousine.
Right.
3D, any more prom day commentary?
No, I think we hit on the head. I just wanted to make sure the casual fan understood.
No doubt.
We got so much, you know, Twitter, how come all this guy get fined and that? I just want everyone to understand why the process was the way it was.
Well, that's what we're here for, to give you knowledge, everything. Trade Deadline Show is coming up. We are going to have it here for you. Make sure you keep it locked on NBA TV, February 6th.
When is that? Man, I might come in for that.
I mean, you might have to, Jack.
I might just fly in early for that.
I mean, you might as well.
Yeah.
Back-to-back Thursday and Wednesday, we got you covered. Check the times are on your screen. But tonight, that's Giannis. You know, the Bucks have gone 11-3 in January, tied for the best mark in the NBA. They visit the Raptors, who have the second-best record at home in the East, 21-4. Who's going to win tonight? It's on TNT.
He'll never get traded.